All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the All In Recruiting Podcast brought to you by the Purple Acorn Network. Today, I am so excited. I'm so pumped to chat with one of the people that I admire here in the Pacific Northwest. I've followed him from my earliest days in recruiting, from when I was a young, before the grain, the beard recruiter, Mac Prichard. Mac Prichard, welcome to the All In Recruiting Podcast.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show, Enrique. What an honor.
Mac, every time I talk to you, I think about my younger days in recruiting and um, been watching you, seeing you, the Mac Prichard list, all these things. Today, I want to talk about all the things that we talked about in the emails, LinkedIn. But I really want, I mean, you do this all the time. You have your own podcast, but what I tell people is let's pretend we're in a 4 to 5 minute cab ride, and we're in it together. Share with me your career journey, and how you got to where you are today in like a quick cab ride.
Well, I run a regional job board, maxlist.org. We serve employers and candidates in Oregon and Washington State. And it's what's called a niche job board, Enrique. And a good niche job board, any board really, is a community, and it exists both online and in real life. And I came to this work accidentally. My career has been in communications, working in government, politics, and nonprofits. But it turns out that the skills you need to thrive in communications are ideal skills for running a job board too, because it's all about building community and connecting people and communicating and listening. And our mission at MaxList is to help people find the jobs that matter and help employers find the best candidates. And being a connector and a communicator and a community builder help us accomplish that mission. And that's what we do. And we do have a podcast like you. And every week I talk to a different expert about the nuts and bolts of job search. And I've learned so much from our guests. And most importantly, the knowledge they share has been invaluable to our community and our listeners.
And take me back to those earlier days, Mac. What made you start it? How did it the stories of like Amazon in a garage, all these big companies, where did you start? How did it start?
Well, MaxList started because I had 2 long periods of unemployment, once in my 20s and once in my 30s. In those experiences, it taught me the importance of learning job search skills, Enrique, but they also taught me the value of networking. And as you know, you've worked as a recruiter and in HR. Good networkers not only ask for help, they give to others, and they do it without any expectation that they're going to get anything in return. And my way of doing that was to share job postings. And I started doing this 25 years ago. Actually, it was in August of 2001, and so almost 25 years.
Wow.
And I did it for almost a decade without running it as a business because I found it was a great way of helping others, but also of staying in touch with my network. But finally, I was running a public relations company at the time. I did that successfully for 15 years, and I found myself paying someone to send out these postings because I was getting so many at that point, and so many people were on our email list that I turned it into a business, and that's when I started maxlist.org.
That's so cool. That's when maybe I was starting it back in the early career days. Oh, look at this list of jobs, and I tell you every time I used to call the people
You were poaching.
I was poaching. It's my confession.
I used to do the same thing. Our mutual friend Agnes Zach called me up and she complained about me poaching from her list. So you were in good company, Enrique.
Yep. No, it's awesome. And I mean, there's so much I want to talk about, but I mean, I know we have only a short amount of time here. Mac, how would you, in your time, kind of seeing the job, the different evolutions of the job market from, let's just say from when it started 25 years ago, how would you describe the ebbs and flow of different markets during different years, different economies? What have you seen? What are the biggest moments that you have experienced in the different job markets that you've seen?
Well, let's talk about what hasn't changed, or what
Mm,
has changed rather,
gosh, so good.
and that's the tools.
Mm,
How we look for work. We've got different tools, and they've got pluses and minuses, but they're different than they were when I first came into the workplace a long time ago, and certainly when Maxwell started in 2001. Job boards were a novelty 25 years ago,
mhm.
and many people were still fretting about what kind of paper they should choose for their resume that they were going to drop in the U.S. mail. So it's easy to apply for jobs now, thanks to technology,
Yeah,
job boards, and other online tools. But the paradox is because it's so easy, there's more competition if you're
yeah,
all you're doing is applying online.
right.
And let's talk about what hasn't changed, and that's the fundamentals. And when I talk about the fundamentals, Enrique, this is something I've certainly learned through my own reading and running a job board that serves thousands of employers, and we get
Yeah.
more than 60,000 people a month who come to our website.
Wow.
But it's also something I've learned from interviewing career experts like you on my podcast every week for almost 10 years now. And what they and the same ideas and the same strategies keep coming up again and again, and they're true today, and they were true back in the 1970s when Dick Bowles published that book, "What Color's Your Parachute?"
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and
So now we're out of the cab. We're in the hotel lobby, and you were saying
yeah, I know I'm droning
now.
on.
Now,
Yeah,
no, this is great.
yeah.
So what are the fun like? What when someone's listening right now? What are, in your opinion, the fundamentals that are like the laws of physics, the laws of the job search? What are they?
Three things. The first thing is know what you want. Yes, you can. There are lots of jobs you could do, and you can keep your options open. But if you're doing those two things, applying for jobs you could do and keeping your options open, you're making your search much longer and harder than it has to be. If you do the work, the self-assessment, and
Mm,
you reflect on your goals and you're clear about where you want to go next, there are probably only two or three jobs that you really want to do. And our challenge when we're looking for our next position is to know what we want and communicate that to others. And when we do that, when we're specific about the one or two jobs that really interest us, we make it so much easier for people to help us. And it focuses us because we're only applying for the jobs we want, not
So
the
for
positions we could do.
so I mean, I love that. Know what you want. So for someone listening right now, and they're in their mind like, how do I know what I want in this crazy economy? What's like two things that they can know? I mean, you said self-assessments, but like what can they do? What can someone do to know what they want?
Well, I think my experience has been both personally and in talking to hundreds of
Yeah.
candidates over the years is that it's inside us. We
Mhm.
know what we want. Sometimes we're afraid to say it
Mm,
because we think it's unrealistic or
right.
it's a big change, and or we think it's unattainable. And if you're not certain, the best way to get clarity is to talk to people who are doing the work you want to do and ask them how they made it happen. And I think most importantly, Enrique, take those internal objections, and we all have them, no matter how successful we might look from the outside. Take those objections we're carrying around in our heads and turn them into positive questions.
I love
So
that.
you might think, oh gosh, I'll never get that job because I don't have this degree, or I didn't work at that company, or I don't know these people. So uh, when you meet with people who are doing the work you want to do, ask them, well, what advice would you have for someone who studied this topic in college, but now wants to work in this field and hasn't had formal training? Maybe that's the objection you're carrying around.
Mm,
So you're turning it into a question, and you're going to get insights. You're going to find out if it really matters or not.
right.
And you're also going to get advice about how to overcome that objection.
I
And
love
if you
that.
have 5 or 10 conversations like that with people who are doing what you want to do, and you address the objections that you think are stopping you from accomplishing that goal, you're gonna figure out pretty quickly whether A, you want to do it,
Yeah.
and B, how to make it happen.
I love that. So that's number one. Know what you
That's
want.
number one.
What's number two?
know where you want to go.
Ah,
So you can go on Mac's List or LinkedIn or Indeed. On our site, you'll find hundreds of jobs. On Indeed and LinkedIn Find sites, you'll find
yeah,
tens of thousands of jobs.
yeah,
And many of them you could do. And maybe you really do. I'm in Portland, Oregon, want to move to Florida. But they're, in the end, if you know what you want, they're probably only, and I'm not talking just about the job title, but
yeah.
things like the commute or hours
Mm,
or on-site versus hybrid. We've all got a list of things that matter to us. And if you put in the time to make that list and you think about the values that are important to you and you do the homework, you're going to discover that there are probably only a few dozen companies or employers rather who offer those opportunities. It takes some homework to figure that out. But when you do that, here's what happens. Instead of looking at all the positions you could do, you focus on the 20, 25, 30 employers who offer what you want. And then you can actually go out and talk to people inside those organizations.
mhm.
Because when you know what you want and where you want to go, then you can start building connections and that are going to generate referrals and uncover jobs that may never be advertised. And you know, as a recruiter and a hiring manager, Enrique, how important connections and referrals are
Oh,
when hiring decisions are
it's
being made.
they're literally. I always tell people it's how the world works.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like how we don't. Well, I don't understand how like a cell in your body works. Like how it all kind of
Mm.
does the work. It's like, yep, the energy just becomes energy, and then your body moves. I don't know how it all works, but it's how the world works. Like referrals, connecting a friend with the resume to the email to the person of a friend, and it's like, oh, perfect conversation. Let's go with it. Like I don't know how it all does it, but it's how it works.
It is how it works. And sometimes when I tell people about the importance of referrals, they think, oh gosh, I'm doomed. I don't know anyone. And
Yeah.
of course, we all know someone. And I would also challenge anyone listening to reflect on the best jobs you've had in your
Mm,
career, maybe the best one of all. And I predict that a referral or connection played a part of that.
100%.
And the reason it mattered was the person making the connection or referral knew what you wanted and what you could do.
Right.
And the other reason it mattered, and you're a hiring manager or have been a recruiter now, and you know that recruiters want to reduce risk.
Mm,
One of the ways to do it, it's not the only way, is they rely on referrals and recommendations.
right.
And again, I would challenge your listener, anyone who's listening to the show or watching it has probably done their share of hiring. And
Right.
we've all sat at that desk and we've had to go through an inbox with 50 applications, or maybe they actually got printed out. Whatever the format, your challenge is to get to the 10 you're going to contact for the phone
Right.
screen.
100%.
So, yeah. So how do you do that? Well, if I'm looking at that stack online and you, Enrique, send me a text that says, oh, you should talk to Mary.
Right.
She's great. I worked with her, or I knew her through this association.
Mhm,
That's not going to
mhm.
get Mary the job, but I'm going to pull up that application and I'm going to study it carefully. And it's the odds of Mary getting the phone screener have just gone up immeasurably.
Right.
So when you're looking for work, one of the things you have to do is look for ways to generate those referrals and make those connections. And if you know what you want and where you want to go, it gets a lot easier to have conversations that will produce that result.
Right. So we start with like the heart. What do you want? Then you kind of go a little bit more. Okay, let's go out a little bit. Where do I want to go? So then, what's the third thing?
What do you offer? And
Oh, so good.
yes,
So good.
and we all have strengths. Every one of us is unique. There's something that we do that nobody else does, and there are many, many things that we do well. And our challenge when we're doing a search and throughout our career, as we manage our careers, is to understand not only what makes us different, but what we offer. And one of the things you need to do is you go out and you talk to people at your target employers, is get a good sense of the employer's problems. Because as you know, again, you're a recruiter, employers hire problem solvers. There's something that's keeping that hiring manager up at night. And
Mhm.
the more you know about that need, the more you can show that you're the person who can solve that problem.
And so if someone does the work, because it's work. I mean, I have helped tons of people
Yeah.
kind of maneuver through kind of what you just kind of put forward, your kind of theory of how to get it going career wise. Like let's dive into like current times today, right?
Yeah.
You and I, we've been in the industry hiring, posting jobs for a couple of decades now, right? What are you seeing that people are job searchers are struggling with right now? Like and what are some kind of potential suggestions or ways to maneuver through those struggles today?
Well, the first thing I see many candidates struggle with are the fundamentals,
Yeah.
not being clear about what they want and where they want to go, and not understanding what they offer.
How do you communicate to people the reality that there is fundamentals, right? Like I always think about things through analogies or like you if someone, I mean, there's only one Michael Jordan or one Caitlin Clark once in a while, right? Like that just they just have the thing, the God-given talent, right? But like I have to teach my kids how to dribble a ball, how to
Yeah.
shoot the ball. Like the fundamentals are crucial. So how do you tell people, hey, person looking for a job or trying to get engaged in the job search, like there are fundamentals that you need to work on. How do you break that bubble? Because it is work, and people don't like to, you know, I don't necessarily enjoy bench pressing because my muscles get torn up, but I know I have to do it to get stronger. So how do you give people? How do you tell them like, hey, you got to hit the fundamentals first?
Well, I want to acknowledge it's challenging
Mhm.
because often what happens, and this happened to me early in my career, is you inadvertently do things that lead to great jobs. So,
Mhm.
in my case, my the first job I got after college was something I wanted very much to do, which was to work on a U.S. Senate race. And I answered a
Oh, cool.
newspaper ad, and I thought, "Oh, that's how you get a job. You answer an ad." The next position I had was with the Human Rights Group in Washington D.C., where I'd done an internship, and
Mhm.
when I was in college, and so because I worked there, and I showed what I could do, I was invited to come back. And the third position I got was within another city, another human rights group, and I was reaching out to my network, just asking if people had heard of opportunities, and I was very specific about what I was looking for, and
Mhm.
that led to a referral. So I say all that because I thought, oh, I know how to look for work, and I didn't because I lucked into these positions, or instinctively did things that were part of what people who master the fundamentals
Yeah,
do.
you intuitively knew how to work like the fundamentals.
I did until I didn't, Enrique, and that's when I hit my first long period of unemployment,
Wow. Yeah.
and I was out for 8 months,
Wow.
and at the end, near the end of that period, my wife was working at Northeastern University. We were living in Boston,
Mm.
and she asked someone at the career services office to meet with me, who took me through the fundamentals. She said, "What's your
Ah,
goal? Where do you want to work? Tell me about what you want
right.
and what makes you different." And so after talking with her and reflecting, I thought, well, I'm in Boston, Massachusetts. I've worked in communications for nonprofits and in politics. I want to work in a communications job in government or politics here in Boston. And and she said, well, who do you know who does that work? And
Right.
I said, well, I know a few people. She said, well, why don't you reach out to them and have conversations with them?
Right.
And I did that. And 2 months later, I had a great job.
Mm.
So, and you would think, oh, all my problems are solved. But there was another long period of unemployment
Right.
in my 30s. The point I'd like to make for listeners is, nobody, if you have, looking for work can be challenging, but like
Yeah.
any skill, you can learn how to do it well. And like any skill, if it's hard, you may, this is me, want to avoid it or procrastinate
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, I remember several times in my 20s thinking, oh, thank goodness I've got a job. Now I don't have to worry about that.
Mhm.
And that's, you really do have to not worry about your career, but manage it throughout the 40 plus years you may be in the workplace.
Yeah.
So I would say, you pay attention to job search skills and recognize that it can be like any new skill, hard to learn in the beginning, but if you're smart and accomplished, and I know your audience is, you will learn these skills, and you'll not only learn them, you'll make them produce the results that you want.
Yeah. One thing I would add is I think a lot about, like, I mean, I live in Portland, Oregon, right? So like as in my younger recruiting days, I was working on in staffing, and I had to really understand Portland, the city, Portland, the geography,
Yeah.
bus routes, like east and west side of Portland. And as I've grown in my career, I've had to do that, but for the country, right? Because I have clients all over, right? Different states, different cities. And so as I've learned about the national economy, national hiring, I've kind of learned that the world is ebbing and the hiring world is ebbing and flowing all the time. And I
Yeah.
think now, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, like now more than ever, you know, we job searchers need to be able to have the fundamentals like learned quick so that they could engage them quick. The good thing is that because of the advancement of technology, they can. Like you don't have to go to like 10 conferences, meet with people, shake their hands at the booth, give them the card, follow up the next Monday. Hey, I was there at the booth. Remember me? Now it's like LinkedIn, like you have so many tools like LinkedIn
Mhm.
and things like that to be able to do the networking, the connecting. Because back in the day, like I mean, my in-laws, they both worked at the same company for like 30 years.
Yeah.
And they had like the tip, like the great American dream, right? The work for the company for 30 years, you retire, you got your pension. Now they like RV the country and have a blast, come visit once in a while too. Love that. Um, but that was, that's a different time. And so now, I mean, you probably know that like the average person works at a company less than 5 years, sometimes way less than that. So the networking, I always tell younger people or anybody in general, like if you have a full-time job, you should be having at least 3 conversations with other companies, just conversations, like networking conversation. What's going on in the industry? What are you guys doing? What are new things coming up? Because now more than ever, companies are laying people off left and right. They're optimizing with AI. They're becoming more lean, and people will get laid off. Like my in-laws, 30 years at the same company. Can you imagine that? I just cannot. I cannot.
Yeah. Well, speaking as a time traveler who entered the workforce in 1979 as a college intern, there's even in the 80s and 90s, Enrique, there was a lot more movement in the workplace
Mm,
than there were in the 50s and 60s and 70s when people did stay at an employer for life. So what you just described is certainly still true at big employers. That you and I are both in Portland, Oregon. Intel is a big employer
yeah.
here, and we both. I know you have it, as have I. Met and known people who have spent several decades at Intel and
Yeah.
now are in their 50s and are being let go.
Yeah.
And in economies, you asked, what about today's economy? How have you seen the job market change over the decades? Economies wax and wane.
Hmm.
There have been recessions and booms, and when things are hot, as they were for job seekers in 22, and when it was truly a job seekers market, you will get contacted by recruiters,
Hmm.
and but that doesn't happen very often. I hadn't seen that happen since the 90s,
Yeah.
and even then, you've got to the fundamentals do matter when
100%.
because you got to know where you want to be. You don't want to try something that isn't going to be a good fit, that doesn't match your goals, no matter how attractive the salary or the compensation
Yeah.
package might be. And fundamentals matter even more when times are tough for job seekers because there's more competition.
What would be your biggest advice or suggestions, not only for like job searchers, but like for the hiring people that are in this market that are hiring? Like, should people have more empathy for the job searcher? How would you like? Because if people are going to work their buns off to work the fundamentals, like how does the hiring side treat the fundamentals? If that makes sense.
Sure. Well, let's break it into two parts. For candidates, I would say don't wait to be picked.
Mm.
Don't wait to be picked. If you get clear about what you want, where
Mhm.
you want to go, and what you offer, and then chase employers, not jobs. Go out, spend a portion of your time looking at on the computer, looking at job boards like Indeed or LinkedIn or Max List. But most of your time, you should be out talking to people about what you want and where you want to go and what you offer. For employers, whatever the unemployment rate or the number of applicants, treat hiring as a branding experience.
Mm.
Because if people have a bad experience with you as a candidate, if you ghost people, you don't get back, you don't respect their time, those candidates not only will remember, they will tell their family and their friends for a long, long time. So,
You mentioned earlier, oh man, it escapes me, but it kind of made me think. Well, the three fundamentals, right?
mhm,
When you were talking about the fundamentals, I thought to myself, companies should, in their own way, communicate their fundamentals, like what they would love in a person, what
yeah.
they expect in a person, or
Yeah,
what,
you asked me for one tip so I went with branding experience. But to your
yeah,
point, as I'm sure you do, and I know why this happens, but it makes the hiring so much harder for employers. Too many employers dust off old job postings.
yeah,
They don't include salary ranges.
mm,
They don't communicate what the hiring timetable is, who's going to be talking. They
right.
treat it hiring as some kind of CIA secret process. and and I think they're getting bad advice or they don't know better.
I don't want to say it, but I'll say it's like release the process, release the hiring process.
Yeah,
We want to know the files of hiring process for this company.
yeah, give feedback, but most importantly, be clear about what you want and what you need and what you're going to pay, and put that down in the job posting. And as you communicate with client or candidates, if you're not going to go with someone, tell them that and tell them
Yeah.
sooner rather than later.
I feel
Nobody
like
likes to get that message, but they'd rather know rather than be out there hanging out
I feel like
waiting to
there's an
hear.
opportunity for business here. Like, how can we make it so that it's people share like their, what their fundamentals, what they want, where they want to go, all those things, and then the
Yeah.
company somehow mirrors to them like, hey, here's we're in the office every day.
Hmm.
You got to come in that's how we work. That is our fundamental
Yeah.
business model. We come in and here's what we pay and here are the hours. And we also like to do a little meeting at 3 o'clock every day and high five
Yeah.
each other because it's part of the culture, whatever. I'm making stuff up, right? And companies should say, that's us. That is us. And if you don't want to work here, it's okay.
Yeah.
Don't apply.
Yeah.
I think that there's like this tension between the two worlds, right? I was at an event and I was in Mac. You were emceeing, I think, at the thing. Remember the person that was like, "Oh, I want to apply to this job, but it says they're hybrid, and I don't want to be hybrid. I don't want to go in." And I'm like, and all the recruiters were like, "Oh, kind of like they were being nice."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Don't apply.
Don't apply if
Don't
that's what you
apply."
don't want. Yeah.
You'd be like, "No, the world." I try to tell people like the way that the world works is not going to bend to you.
Right.
You got to go to where, like you said, do the fundamentals, work the fundamentals, and you'll
Yeah.
find the companies that are telling you, "Hey, you don't got to come in. We're
Right.
working from home."
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's way
There's a
better
large
experience.
number of employers that offer remote jobs. There are
Yeah.
perhaps fewer of them this year than there were in 20 and 21. but they're out there, and
Right.
your job as a candidate is to find them and focus your energy on on the employers who offer what you want, because you'll thrive there and your career
Yeah.
will flourish as a
And you'll
result.
be happier. Everything will be
Yes.
exponentially better for your life outside of work. You won't
Yeah.
dread going to work because you don't got to go to work or whatever the thing is, right? Whatever it is that you feel you want in a job. If you could do the fundamentals and you could decipher that's the thing. I feel like sometimes employers don't communicate it really well, so it's hard to decipher
Yes.
the employer's fundamentals. And I think that's a big opportunity for employers to share,
I, I,
you
I
know.
agree. And I think just as many applicants struggle with learning job search skills, many employers, particularly the ones that have that are smaller in size, face the same struggle with hiring. And as you know, most employers don't add an HR person until they have 25 or 30 employees. So many of the organizations that use our job board, the person posting with us hasn't been, they were trained in something else. They
Yeah,
weren't
yeah, yeah.
trained in recruitment.
Yeah, yeah.
So often when you're applying for a job, you're being, the recruitment process is being managed by someone who just hasn't had formal instruction in how to manage that.
Right.
And the experience that you have is shows it. And but employers have to invest in that, because again, hiring is a branding experience, and it's also good hiring is a good business practice.
I
And
just
yeah,
I agree. I think the onus should be on both sides.
yes, I agree.
Like the
Yeah,
onus should like the person that said, I don't want to I want to apply to this, but I don't want it to be like that. It's like, no, 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 no. You need to do the work. You need to do, like, as a job searcher, you need to do the fundamentals so you can really understand yourself and know where you want to go. And I think employers need to work hard at like communicating, like billboard it. Hey, this is what we are about. And I don't think companies, for example, like I don't think companies that are like in the office or don't have all the shiny bells and whistles, like I don't think those kinds of companies should be put down or like, you know, put on blast or anything. Because I just think it's their company.
yeah,
Like, who are we to tell a company how to run their company? You know, like if someone came to my house and they said, hey, I think the dinner table should be facing this way, and can you change the AC temperature to that? I'm like, this is my house.
yeah,
No, no, how
right.
about no? So I
Yeah,
think the onus should be on both sides. And I think that's a really hard conversation to have because it's tough out there. You know, you know, it's
it
tough.
is hard. When we're recording this, it's if you're a travel nurse, this is a golden age. There are plenty of jobs in that field and in healthcare in general. And hospitality is still strong. But you and I both happen to be in Oregon, and construction is tough right now. Many professional jobs, technology is really tough. Again, no matter how low the unemployment rate, there are always parts of the economy, even when others are thriving, that are
It's a weird
in the
paradigm.
dumps.
It's a weird
Yeah,
paradigm to live.
it
Like
is.
I
Yeah,
posted about the other day. I said it's interesting that we can be, you know, like you said, travel nurses hiring like crazy, or even like some hospitals go on protests and they got to hire protest nurses to come in and fill in while the nurses are protest. Like that part is like hiring like crazy, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
then we see in the same, you know, news cycle, we see X company lays off
Hmm.
5,000 people. So it's a definitely like an interesting paradigm to live in right now, where it's sometimes you feel like the cringe of or the heartbreak of like, oh man, that's so tough. But then you're like, oh my gosh, this new pop-up company is hiring like crazy. It's like, wow. So it's like you're right. On the job searcher side, you gotta maintain the fundamentals.
Yeah,
You got it, because if you do, then you could ride the ebbs and the flows of whatever's going to happen. Big layoffs, big hiring, right?
right.
Ride the waves,
Yeah,
whether high or low.
because even when times are tough, somebody is always getting hired. The competition is more intense, and the number of applications is much higher, but somebody's going to get an offer.
Right.
But whatever the unemployment rate, whether it's in the low single digits
Right.
or high, or goodness knows, I hope it doesn't hit double digits again. One strategy that isn't going to work is only applying online. If that's all you're doing, you got a tough road to hoe ahead of you. And because again, we've talked about how hiring works, how the
Yeah.
importance of referrals, connections, how managers are trying to reduce risk, how knowing what you want, where you want to go, and what you offer will help you stand out from your competitors. If you're not doing that and you're just hitting easy apply, you're making life much harder for yourself than it has to be.
I love it. We can leave it there, Mac. I love it. I hope that the listeners on this podcast can really work on the fundamentals. I think they're easily like we don't need to teach a course necessarily on like, hey, do these 3 things. I think people can do them intuitively. So do those. If you're listening, do the fundamentals and subscribe to Mac's list.
And let me just add, I had to learn them the hard way, Enrique. So every mistake in the book I made earlier in my career.
I mean, that's kind of why I do with this podcast, because I've been in all these different positions. I've been laid off. I've been unemployed. Now I'm an entrepreneur, kind of want to be entrepreneur in Portland. And I've seen it all. And I've seen it through like the lens. I mean, for the Pacific Northwest, like you mentioned, Intel, when I worked in staffing, it was people like big companies like Nike would hire a lot for like a while. And then every 6 or 7 years, they'd be like, boom, layoffs. And it wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't like pandemic or new like AI technology. It was just like economics 101, like every 7 or 8 years, you kind of have like this correction in the economy for jobs, and big companies like Nike kind of have to, ride those waves too. So yeah, I think such good conversation, Mac. If you're listening, when you close this podcast, subscribe to Mac Prichard's List. Great content, great podcast, great jobs on the board. Such a legend in Portland, Pacific Northwest. Yeah. So cool to spend some time with you, Mac. Yeah, thank you so much.
Quickly, please connect with me on LinkedIn. When you do reach out, please mention you heard me on Enrique's show. Our podcast is Find Your Dream Job. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. And while our job board is focused on Oregon and Washington at maxlist.org, there is a wealth of information both about hiring and how to look for work that works anywhere, no matter where you might be living. So, Enrique, thank you for the opportunity to be a guest.
Yeah, I hope we can come back and talk again in the future, and I'll jump on your podcast again whenever you want me. Okay. And thank you all for listening, and we'll end it there. What a great conversation with Mac today. Great person. Make sure to follow him on LinkedIn, check out his podcast, and more to come, more episodes to come in the future. Thank you for listening to the All In Recruiting Podcast, part of the Purple Acorn Network. So excited to have you all here. Make sure to go to purpleacornnetwork.com and follow us on LinkedIn. Wherever you're seeing this, click the link, comment, make a suggestion for future episodes. So happy for you all to be listening, and on to the next one. Thanks.